What's up, my dude? Your friendly neighborhood Tony, and today we're going to take a look at another classic Christmas movie from the perspective of someone who is, well, kind of a Christmas virgin. That's right, for those that don't know, I grew up not celebrating Christmas or really watching any of the Christmas movies that you know and love. So over the next few weeks, as we get closer to Christmas, I'm going to be reviewing several of the most popular movies and giving you my thoughts on some holiday traditions that I'm not particularly familiar with. So if that kind of thing sounds good to you, drop a like on the video, and if you want to see more movie reviews, trailer reactions, ranking videos, all that good stuff, make sure you subscribe. And today, if you couldn't tell by the title and thumbnail, we are going to be taking a look at the 2003 Christmas holiday comedy starring Will Ferrell called Elf. So as I do with all my reviews, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the movie, then I'll go into the things I liked, the things I didn't like, and then finally, whether or not I recommend this movie. So Elf came out in 2003 and is directed by Jon Favreau, who at the time hadn't really done a lot, but since then has gone on to direct movies like the original Iron Man, as well as Iron Man 2, which is less beloved, but it's still a guilty pleasure of mine. He also more recently directed The Jungle Book and The Lion King, and also has worked on a lot of the Star Wars series, specifically with The Mandalorian, but he's really quickly becoming Disney's go-to guy, which is awesome. Elf, of course, stars Will Ferrell in the lead role. You also have James Caan, who plays Will Ferrell's father in the movie. You probably know him from The Godfather, you know, that little film that nobody's probably seen. And playing Will Ferrell's love interest in the movie is Zooey Deschanel, who at the time hadn't really done a ton, but we all know who she is now. And the movie Elf follows Will Ferrell's character, who goes by the name of Buddy. You see, he was a baby at an orphanage, and through a series of events on Christmas Eve, he crawls into Santa's bag and gets accidentally whisked away to the North Pole, where he then grows up, not realizing that he's actually a human. And from there, he wants to get to know his real life father, so he travels to New York City to seek out James Caan's character, who is a publisher, I think, of a children's book company, but is also not a great guy and is in fact on the naughty list. Now, Elf has been incredibly successful financially and critically. It's made a ton of money and is considered by many to be a modern Christmas classic. So of course I had to check it out. So let's go ahead and start off with the things that I liked about the movie, and there's quite a few. For one, I really like the balance of the absurdity of Will Ferrell's character and kind of the deadpan, straightforward nature of some of the others. Really, the balance between James Caan and Will Ferrell is fantastic in this movie. You also have Bob Newhart, who plays Will Ferrell's kind of adopted elf father, and right from the jump, he is kind of addressing the camera, telling the story about this whole encounter that Will Ferrell has. And the way that he delivers to camera is just so dry. It's so perfectly dry when you consider the things that he's talking about are incredibly just over the top and ridiculous. So that balance there is just perfection. Also, before they go to New York, when they're in the North Pole, there's a lot of really cool stop motion and set design, and I really dig what they did there. It kind of reminded me of like the old Frosty the Snowman cartoons, but with its own kind of modern spin on that. So I thought that was really cool. A lot of the art, the set design, even some of the animation, even though this isn't necessarily an animated movie. To keep going with the positives, this is Will Ferrell at his peak. I mean, if you look at his IMDb, this same year that he did Elf, he also did Old School, which is another classic. And then the following year was Anchorman, which has become probably his most popular movie, just period. So this is really kind of a moment in American cinematic history where Will Ferrell is just beloved by everyone. And his brand of humor, his unique brand of humor, is just something that is taking the world by storm. And honestly, I'm kind of jealous that I didn't get to watch this when I was a kid, because Will Ferrell's type of humor is so childlike in nature that had I seen this when I was a little kid, it would have absolutely been one of my favorite movies. It also just does a really good job of kind of living up to that Christmas spirit and kind of infusing that in everyone that watches it. As ridiculous and over the top and insane as Will Ferrell is, the movie itself just makes you feel good and kind of gets you into that holiday mood. And Elf does not do what so many movies nowadays do, that is basically a cardinal sin, and that is it does not overstay its welcome. It is a swift hour and a half. And really nowadays, I think it's probably because they are spending so much money on these movies that they want to milk every minute out of the runtime. But this movie, it comes in, it says a few jokes, it kind of takes you on this ride, and it's done. And it's beautiful, it's perfectly paced, and there's no weird feeling of either not getting enough or being bored halfway through the movie. As a comedy, it is perfectly paced. Now, as far as the things that I didn't necessarily like about the movies, and there's really only a couple, overall, I think it was a very positive experience. But one thing I will say is, for a person like myself who did not grow up watching this movie, and as someone who was very familiar with Will Ferrell's work back in the early 2000s, coming into this in the 2020s now, it definitely felt dated in a way, specifically with Will Ferrell's brand of humor. So I guess that's to say, if you're not a fan of his slapstick, ridiculous, childlike humor, you're probably not going to like this movie. In fact, I can almost guarantee you won't. And I've noticed that's been kind of a thing specifically with Will Ferrell and a lot of his movies as time has gone on, is people have kind of figured out his brand of humor and have kind of gotten tired of it in a lot of ways. So if that's where you're at mentally, then I probably wouldn't recommend that you watch this movie. But for me, I feel like I was able to kind of put my mind back into the early 2000s and just kind of accept it for what it was. Also, this movie is very simple. A lot of the characters are pretty one-dimensional, and the story has a very basic plot that it follows. So if you're looking for something more than that, this is not the place. And because of that, you may be not as interested in some of the characters. I'll tell you, for example, with Zooey Deschanel's character, I wasn't really wrapped up in anything that she had going on. She was super one-dimensional. There wasn't really a lot that her character brought to the table. And of course, that's no fault of her own. It's just the way the character was written. So that is something to consider as well. But aside from that, I had a really great time watching Elf. And like I said before, I'm only upset that I didn't get a chance to see this when I was a kid. So overall, Elf gets a really positive review from me. It is definitely going to be on my rotation going forward. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. Is this a movie that you grew up with? Or is it, like me, a movie that you hadn't seen until recently? And what do you think? Let me know all of your thoughts, whether you liked it or hated it. Let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you want to see more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and ranking videos, make sure you subscribe. All right, that's going to be it for me. I'll catch you in the next one. Be good.